So again, what we did, we created a data variable. So we call it your name and some other people's name. And we sorted that data. So now it's giving us John Morunke, which is kind of different from the arrangement that we saw here. So we have the sorted data and we printed it out, sorted data. So now let's say we want to print out this sorted data in another format, string formatting. This is the format of the data, but now we need a new format. That's what we call the string formatting. So I can use the f string in order to do that. Okay, so we use the f string, and this was the example I was showing to you here before. Also, we had the same example right here. So something like this. So if we take this example, for instance, and let's put it here so that we can compare to what we are doing here. So here and here. So what are we talking about? So here we have the data is having a first name, the second person, in third person, fourth and fifth person. And when we sorted it, the arrangement is different. So now I want to use this sorted data to print out the name. So what I'm going to do is to say right here, I will use this delimiter, or we can say curly braces. And we have to use that because we are right inside a string now. So if I didn't use that, whatever I put here is going to be green. So which means this is what is going to be printed out. So let's check it out, what I mean by that. So if I put ty here, ty is going to be printed here. But if I put sorted underscore data here, this is a variable which is storing sorted data of this type. But if I put it just inside a string, we discussed about a string already. And that string is what will be printed out. So let's check it out. So right here, you can see we have sorted data. It is not actually printing the data that has been sorted. But if we take this off, it will print the data that has been sorted. So you can see that. So now we are talking about string formatting, and this is the reason why we have to learn it, because there will be situations where we want to get individual item from our variable. Individual, John, Moniolua, Morunke separately, Peter separately, individual. So individually, how do we do that? So we use string formatting. So the sorted variable, in order to be able to see this now, using this f string, so we call this f string, which allow us to format. So we can use curly braces. You see now that this changed to white. It is not green anymore. So which means that it represents now the data that we have stored into the sorted data. So if I print it this time around, I should have still these guys, not just sorted data that got printed here before, because of these curly braces that you can see here. Okay, so that's one. And now, what is the purpose of what I'm actually doing here? So because even without this F string, we are still able to print this guy, you remember? So even if I remove this, we are still able to get this result. So let's check it. We still get this result. So the purpose of F string is to make sure we are able to format our string and get individual data easily. So one thing is, now I want to get the person at position 0. So when we are talking about positioning, we also call it indexing in computer science. So indexing represents the position of an item in a list. So I already mentioned that when you have these square brackets, you are talking about item in a list. And this should make sense to you. So you have many people inside a list in a group, something like that. Okay, so let's say I want to print out only John. I'm printing only John based on the indexing, because John in this list of people will be at the position 0 by the time John is sorted. By the time this data is sorted, actually, not John, this data. Because initially John was at position 1 when the data is not sorted. But because we are taking the sorted data, and after that, we want to get who is number 1. So because we are getting who is number 1, we didn't say 1 here. No, we said 0. Reason is because indexing is a 0 based. So indexing always start from 0. So which means that this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. In a list of 5 people, we have 0 to 4 indexing. So now if I print this guy, I should be expecting John to be printed out. Here we go. So out of this data, we sort it and we printed just one individual. So if I want to format how each of these guys printed out now, or let's say if I want to add something which is specific to John to this data, I can do that. I can format it. So let's say, for example, I want to say H is equal to. So what is the H? So let's say age is 10 for John. So at this particular point, I can come right here and say John age. So which means that here I will say 10 is the age. But I won't say 10, I will say age because we define the age to be 10 here. And what else can we pass to John? So let's keep it simple. So now if I run that, we can have John 10. And we can do something. So let's say if this condition is true, if sorted data of a 0 is equal to, take a look at what I'm doing, John. Then we want to say that's when the age is 10. Then we want to print this guy. But in a condition where the sorted age, so let's say else. This is the if condition. If this is true, we do this. Then else, what do we do? Else, we want to keep age to be equal to 20 for the rest of these people. So whatever. So I'm not saying specifically your age is 20, but let's just for sample sake. So let's check it out. So I will explain what I mean, but let's check it out. So when when age is, when sorted data is 0, we have John. So we print that sorted age, but if the age is 20, for the rest of them, we want to print something else. So which means that in this condition, it would have made sense to use a for loop. So we can say for I in sorted data. So which of course I'm still going to explain what I'm doing here. So what do we mean? So in order for you to see what we mean, so I will comment this guy out and I will uncomment it later. So when I say for high in sorted data, so we can just say for name. So high actually means item. But now if I say for name in sorted data, so this basically represents each of these name that we have here is what I want to see. So let's say we print it out, print name. And if I run that, we have all the names. So these are all the names in sorted data: John, Monioluwa, Morunke, Peter, and Ruth. Okay, so now let's say if we already have the code, but I will just retype it. If name is equal to John, so just like what we did here, if sorted data at position 0, so when we were not using the for loop, we know that John is at position 0, which is this one, and we say it's equal to John. So it's the same thing as saying if name in this sorted data. So as a matter of fact, the name John name is equal to John. Then we can say age of John then is equal to 0. So we assign John the age of 10. But in every other situation, so which is the else condition, then we can say age is equal to 20. And then we can do print. So let's print. And here, what we want to print now is this format that we have here before. So let's copy that. So we want to print something here. So we want to print, let's move this down a little bit so we can see here. So we want to print name. In this case, we are not printing sorted data anymore of index 0 because we are already having a variable which already allow us to have each individual name. So John, Monioluwa, and so on. So we can just say print the name, whatever the name is, and the age, whatever the age is. So note, if the name is equal to John, so it prints John, and it prints the age to be 10. In every other condition, we print the names and we print the age to be 20. So let's see if everything is fine. So here we go. So in the situation of John, this is the only time we have 10. In every other situation, their age is 20. And we have John, Ruth, and so on, because we are also printing name here. So we can comment this guy house. So now if I come down right here, let's run it again. So in the situation of John is just 10 years old. Onioluwa is 20, Moronka is 20, Peter is 20, Ruth is 20. This is what we had is called to do. Okay. And string formatting already in this case means that this is a string of data. This is the way we formatted it out. This way. And this is what you can see here. Which of course we could have done something of this format. I'm taking this one so that you can see that what we are doing is something that is very useful in every other area, for instance. So we could have done something of this format that we did here. So what is this? So the F string that we are using here is this. It's still the same here. But now that we have name, so what is this? When we printed this out, nobody might understand what we are talking about. We just say John 10. So what is 10? And what is John? So now we could have done something related to here. So let's say here, sorry, I will do put name here, and I will say here. And right here, I can also make here to be H and put this. So something related. And if I print, so let's comment this guy out for now. So if I print this, what do we see? So here we go. Name is John, age is 10. Name is Monioluwa, age is 10. So you can see the way we format. You can see the way we format this string that we have here. These are strings of data. We formatted it in this format. So maybe at the end of it, you needed this kind of format. As for me, when I was writing my own code, for instance, for the example I showed you the other time, I needed a format which includes the year, the make, and the model. And I got whatever the name of the make is, whatever the name of the model is, whatever the year name is. And I'm able to send those over the internet to fetch some other data for me, because this is the format the API request for. I formatted it based on that. So it depends on what you want to achieve. So whatever it is, you can use string formatting and printing to actually format your data. And a sample is what I just show you quickly right here. And this is just an overview of what we are going to be talking about in the slide. Okay. Any question for this code? Do you have any question? Nafisat, question?
No from me.
Do you understand? Hmm?
I understand.
Okay. Ruth, how about you? Do you have question?
Not really, because I don't really know how to ask the question.
You don't know how to ask the
No,
question.
I don't understand.
Okay, that's a good one. I think I understand your points. You don't know how to ask the question. Okay, that's a very good one. Which means basically something is still not clear.
Yes.
Okay, so what are we talking about? As a matter of fact, I went ahead of time to explain things to you. And one thing about me is I love doing things that way because it gives you an insight to what you will later encounter, what you will later see. And it helps us to reason fast. So that's one of the reasons for doing all these kind of things. As a matter of fact, I should just be going through the slide without doing this, but I immediately did this one just to tell you the importance of what you want to learn now. So let's try to recap it. So one thing is, don't think of yourself able to write the code I wrote here presently. You might not be able to reason it or to write it at this time, which is fine. But all what I'm saying here is just for you to see the power of the string formatting. Can you mute your uh, mic? So let me try. Yeah. So all I'm saying here is just to allow you to see the importance of the string formatting. And here I created a data, is a variable. I could have called it names. And which means that here now we have an error because we passed in something that doesn't exist. So name is what we change it to. So I can change this to names. So because what we store here into this data are names. So you remember how we created a variable initially? So initially we are creating a variable using, so let me put this down. Let me comment this out. So initially we are creating a variable using something like this. So we call it, let's say root. But in this case, it won't be names anymore. It can just be name, right? Because it's just one person. So root is just one person. But in my situation, I want to be able to have many. So now, which means that if I run this code now, I'm going to have an error because right here, the error will come at line 10. Sorry, line 10. It will give an error because my sorted data is not a list anymore. So let's check it out and see. Okay, so here you see, it's an error. So R H T U. You see the way it splitted your name. So this is not what I want to achieve because now it's taking roots to be one. It's taking each letter to be one. You see, and now it said for name in sorted data, which is sorting your root. R is the first, H follows, T follows, and U follows. And since we said if the name is not equal to John, then the H should be 20. So it's assigned 20 to all these ones because none of this is John. But this is not what I want. I want a situation. So I just show you an example of the variables that we have been creating. And this is the first time we are creating a variable using a group of items. This one that we saw here. This one. This is the first time we created a variable using a group. And in order to create a variable with a group of items, I quickly introduce you to a square bracket, which we are still going to learn later. But this is just an initial introduction because I want to talk about string formatting. So basically, for now, a list of items is what this allow us to create list. This is one item in a list. This is another item in a list. So one item in a quotes, and after that we have a comma. Another item in a quotes, and we have a comma. So basically, I could have put this into one line. If I want, doesn't matter. So just like the way we created root variable in one line. So now we have many data stored into this variable called name, not just root in this case, many. So if we didn't use this square bracket, it's going to give an error. So which of course is going to represent this to be basically something like a tuple, which is not a list. So let's run it. So here we can still see basically it's fine, but this is not representing as a list anymore. It's representing as a tuple. So, but since we have to talk about a list, so it's always good to wrap it into here. So which means that we are talking about each of these items that you have here to be inside a group of bottle or container or something. So this is what this means. And this represents a list. You should always have it when you have group of items like this. And here we have names. Okay, so we store this into a name variable. And what we did after is we sorted it. If I want, we might not sorted it if we don't want to sort it. So when we sort it, this is why John is the first person. But if we did not sort it, so sorting just basically means that you have, let's say for example, you have 3 apples at home, and you want to sort the apples based on the size. Which one is the biggest, which one follows the smallest after, because these are 3. So that means you have the biggest, you have the middle one, and you have the smallest one. So that will be 3 apples if you want to sort it based on how big the size of the apple is. So sort that we use here just means that we sort based on the characters, the first letters that we have. This is what we are doing. So if you know your alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and so on. So you want to, okay, let's say we created another variable here. We call it Ade. So let's say the name of the person is Ade. So now, no matter how we sort this, Ade, which is at first here, is always going to be first because A is the first letter in our alphabet. So this is what is sorted means. So let's try to run it and see. So Ade is always first. So in this case now, John follows. And that was the disadvantages of writing your code using this kind of scenario. So using sorted 0 is equal to John because the data can change. So if we do this now, John is no more at index 0, is already at index 1 by the time it's sorted. So here we can see because Ade is always going to be at index 0. So this is why a for loop is used. And I show you an example here using an indexing, which of course you don't have to be worried about right now because we are still going to talk about it later by the time we continue with our lecture. But the main purpose here is just to show you that we have data right here, more, not just one, inside a variable. We push a lot of data inside one variable, and we sorted that data. If we want, we can do that. If we don't want, I can comment it out. It's not a must, and we can go over the names instead of the sorted names. So we can say so this means that it reads this way for each name. So name, Ade, Ruth, John, Moniolua, Peter, and Morunke for each name. So which of course I can say for each item or for each n. It's just a variable. You can call it whatever you want. But you remember a class where we said you should always make sure whatever you type has a meaning. So we are talking about names, name, name. So we are talking about name. And this is why we can say for each name, this is what this means. I'm reading it the way it means, but we don't have the each here, but it's just mean for each name in names. This is the names. So names is a storage which stores a lot of names. And we now say for each name that we have in the storage, call names, because now we have a lot of names. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 names. So each of them is name, singular. This is a plural that stores it. So for each name that we have in names storage, okay, then we said we can print the name out. And if we print the name out, which of course we make it obvious that truly we are talking about each individual name in names. So if I print that name out, that was when we got all the names. So now it is not sorted. We got it the way it is stored. So Ade, Ruth, John, Niolua, Peter, and Morunke. So now we didn't sort it. But if I said we want to use this sorted, so let's call it sorted name, sorted names. And if I say here, I change it to sorted names. And when we run this, yeah, this situation change. Ade is always first because based on what is sorted means, Ade is already a first letter alphabet A. So John follow because if you read your alphabet, we understand that half should not be here when we still have John. John follow. Moniolua follows. Morunke follows. And Peter follows. And Ruth follows. So this can decide based on some other things. So good question that you might ask is that M and M is the same. But your computer can still go ahead to, if that condition happens, maybe select 3 out of this to judge. So which one should come first? M-O-N, M-O-R, then you will decide and put the one that comes first to come and the next one to follow. So now we printed out all the names. So now here it should be obvious to you that what this means is that for each name in sorted names, so names, so it keep printing, it keep taking the name and print it out. Ade, name. The second name is Ruth, it prints it out. The third name is John, it prints it out, and so on. We print everything out after we have sorted it actually. But I went ahead to show you the power of the printing and the formatting of string, since this is what we are talking about, and this is the purpose of writing this code. So I went ahead to show you right here. So each of the name that we printed out, I have a clause here. I said, if the name, don't forget, we'll be talking about variable, so you should understand. This is just a variable and comparison operator. We use the comparison operator, which of course we learned already. So which means that it's talking about now, if in our sorted names, or if in our names, so let's keep this back to names. So we don't go with sorted names, just for simplicity's sake. So if in our names that we have here, if any of the name is equal to John, if any of these variable is storing John, which of course it will happen. So because which of course it will happen, because here we can see John. So we just say if this name is equal to John, then we created a variable. We said age is equal to 10. So which means that John age is equal to 10. In every other situation of names that occur aside from John, so which is the else condition. So it's just like when you say do this else, you can go to hell or you can go to wherever you want. You know, if you are not going to do it, like just an English statement. So if name is John, you do this for John H. If name is not John, this is the else condition. If name is not John, we have many conditions. Ade, Ruth, Moniolua, Peter, and Murunke. This is what the else condition takes care of. So in every other situation, when the name is not John, then assign the age to be 20. And this is when we use the formats that we want. So this is the format that we want now in order to print out something. So we're talking about string formatting and printing. So we are formatting this string of names into something which takes out each of the individual name and put an age to that person. So we format a string and we print it out. So which means that if I run this code now, it gives us the name of the people and their age. So when the person is Ade, age is 20, Ruth, and so on. The only condition is John, and this is it here. So if the name is equal to John, we said his age should only be 10. If we want, we can say the age is 30 or 300 for John, if possible. So let's check it out. So here we go. So if the name is John, the age is 300, which of course we can say 30 or go back to 10. And we also talk about assignment operator. Let's check it out here quickly before we go back to the slide. So just like what I showed you before. So let's say we want to count how many names that we have here. So I will just say C is equal to 0. So my C represent count. And I can say for names in names. So whenever I take a name out, I can increment my C. So C plus equal to 1. So which means that when I go over Hade, then I already have 1 name. When I go over Root, I already have additional 1 name. So this keep counting. When I take John, I already have additional 1 name. That's 3. When I take Moniolua, I have additional 1 name, 4. When I take this, I have additional 1 name, that will 5. And when I take Murunke, I have additional one. That will be 6, right? So now let's say we want to print out the we want to print out at the end of this, let's say we want to print out the counts. Let's just say C, in this case, count is equal to C. Here we go. So Ade is number 1 when we count it. Root count is 2. John count is 3, just like the way I show you. Ade is 1. Root is 2. John is 3. Monioluwa is 4. And Peter is 5. And Moroka is 6. So a lot can keep happening here. So we can keep formatting this just string that we have here. So basically, it's just an introduction to string formatting and printing, nothing more. Okay, so the code might look a little bit difficult, which of course I understand because we've not actually talked about a for loop. We've not talked about this. So for loop is an iteration. It's a way you take data out of multitude of data. So which means it will be able to take this data one by one by one by one by one and do the job that you want for that data. Okay, that's a for loop. And this is what we can see right here. And we format that and we have this out of it. Okay. And let's go back to this slide basically. So you already have an overview to what the string formatting and printing means. And when we say string printing, there are 4 main ways of printing data. There are 4. And the first one is unformatted output. The second one is the printf style formatting, which is the old style. Then we have what we call the str.formats, which is formatting new style. And we have what we call string interpolation, which is formatting string literals. We are going to be discussing about each of these guys for you to understand. So the print function is what you are already familiar with. So we use it a lot of time. And here we can see that the print function is still something that we're using here. So we use the print in order to display our results, whatever it is. Okay, so that's the print function. And right here, we now say, however, print function is more powerful than what you have been seeing so far. It's more powerful than that. We can use it to do some other things, like this 3 point that you can see here. So we can use it to append a string after the last value. We can use it to display many values at once. And we can define a separator inserted between values. So one of it is what you've seen here, to display many values at once. So here you can see this is just more than one, many different values, name, age, count. Don't forget the reason for the curly braces. We are still going to talk about it also. Okay. So now if I remove all these curly braces for the variable names, we have green out for everything. And that just prints me whatever is written here, name, age, C. That's what will be printed out. And that is not dynamic. It's not fetching me the data. So here you can see So you can see what we are talking about with the usage of the curly braces right here inside the string formatting. At least you can obviously see it for now, but we are still going to discuss it in class because we still have a section for that. So if I go back here, this is this point, display many values at once. So we saw that. And print multiple values. So here we have an example on how we can print multiple values. So we have many strings can be printed out using the print function, right? So which of course I just mentioned to you. And here we have an example. So for here, we say given many strings by default, they will be separated by space. So print out multiple strings. Here we go. So we just say what is today's date. So we have to separate each of these string with a comma. So we can see that right here. So since we are printing just a string here, so if I copy that, and if I comment this guy out, just to show you an example. So if I comment those out and I print this, so here we can see, because I'm running this code inside a for loop, it's printing many times. And the reason is because I'm running inside a for loop. So it's printing for the count number of names that we have in the list of names. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 names. And it's printed 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Reason is because of a for loop right here. But that's not what I wanted to show you, but this happens, and this is why I told you. But what I want to show you is just to print once, not many times. So which means I can go outside of the for loop. And if I print it now, here we go. What is today's date? So here we can see that we have each of these inside their home codes. These are just the string that we print out, unlike dynamically printing out data based on whatever that is being passed in here. Okay, so that's one. So let's reprint. So here we go. We print out all the data for the name, and we still print this out just once, not many times. So let's take this off. Okay, I'll go back to this slide. So you understand this already because we've been talking about string for a long time. And also this one is the same here. So we print out 1, 2, which is a string, 3, 4, which are integers. So again, if I go right here, let's try to, I think it's going to make sense for us to create our string formatting right here so that we can all follow. Give me one sec. So now, instead of doing it in a wrong folder, so let's create a folder here. So I'll call it directory. So this is going to be whole5, and this is going to be string, right? So string formatting, and formatting should be basically double T, and printing. So string formatting and printing, this is what we're talking about. And inside this string formatting and printing, so we want to create files, okay? So the first file, of course, is going to be, maybe we should do the printing introduction. So it's going to be the first one. So let's create new Python file and call this printing intro.py. So first, we are talking about printing out something called multiple values. Okay, so this is the first thing we're talking about, and we use a print statement. So we call the first one something like what, and we say we give a space. So if you take a look at this, what is today's dates? Again, is, comma, today. So date. And we have something like full stop separately. So comma and full stop inside a string, because it's also a string. So this is first thing we did. So basically I will move this example which I did here. I'll cut it. Let's move it here. So move it right here. So let's remove these ones. Okay, so print introduction. And now if we print this one, this introduction, we have what is today's date. So then we went ahead to say we can print something like 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So 2 strings, 2 integers. So if I print that out also, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. The question is, when we print them out, it's kind of difficult for us to see the differences between all these numbers. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are not sure if all of them are even integers now. Remember we talked about integer and a string. So now let's assume that we have we talked about that later. I don't want to push too much things to you now. So basically we print out here. And now we also have here this kind of situation where we have a foot as variable, and what we assign into the variable foot is called apple. And now we print something out. So let's check it. We print pineapple, orange, and the fruit. So pineapple, if I'm right, we have orange, and we have the fruit. So question is, what is going to be printed out in replace of this fruit? So let's go over the class. Moniolua, are you there? Should I repeat the question? Okay, I think maybe you are having mic issue. Okay, so my question is, we have fruits, we store apple inside the fruits. And now we say we want to print pineapple, orange, and fruit. So what are we going to see here in the terminal when we print it out? Is it going to be pineapple, orange, and fruit that we will see, or what?
We are going to see apple.
Okay, that's correct. So we are going to see apple because we store apple inside the fruit. And another question is why it is that we didn't wrap this inside a double quote. Why? Here you can see this inside double quotes. But for this condition, we did not, and we did not see any error. So why? Anyone from the class?
Yes.
Because all of them are fruits.
Yeah, all of them are fruit. That's correct, but that didn't answer the question. So my question, let me repeat it. Okay, so here we have pineapple. We put it inside a double quote, it's a string. We have orange. We put it inside a double quote. But in the case of fruits, we didn't put it inside a double quote. Why?
We didn't put, we are supposed to put the fruits in double quotes so that it's going to come out as a string.
Okay. Yeah, but if we do that, then what are we going to see?
We're going to see apple as a result of that.
Okay, that will not be correct. Let's check it out. So you said we should put it inside a double quote. If we do that, then instead of saying apple, we will see fruit. So let's check it. So pineapple, orange, fruit. But when we remove the double quotes, we will see apple. So let's check it. Here we go. So the reason why we didn't put this inside a double quote is because it is a variable. Okay. So you don't put a variable in a double quote. If you do,
okay,
then it turns it to something else. So a variable is already being declared and is storing a string. And you remember we talked about that whatever we store inside a variable determines the type of the variable. So since we store a string in this variable, so this variable returns strings to us, apple. So, but now we don't have to do this. No, because already this is already a string. So this is why we don't have to repeat adding a string to that. So when you store a string into a variable, it already have a string. So you can print it out, whatever is stored inside a variable. Okay, so when you have a variable, remember, you don't put it in a quote when you are printing it out. And that was one of the reasons when I needed to print the variable here using an F string, this double quote is changing it to a string, but I have to come around it to wrap it with something like this in order to allow me to be able to get my variable data. You can see that. So double quote always is not meant for the variable. This is a variable, and we need to do something to make sure we separate our concerns. So you can see it's changed back to color C for variables. So you can take note of even the colors. So when we define variable, they are always white color. So white color, white color, white color, white color. Okay, white color, white color, white color. These are all variables. Wherever you store things are variables. They are all white colors. Values, green, string. Here we go, green. Integer, so you can see like light blue. You can see they have their own colors. So you can also take note of that. So variable don't go inside quotes when you use the print statement. Here we go. No, you don't do that. Okay. And that gives us this. Now, we can continue. So, let's take some few more time for break. I think we haven't taken our break, like the 30 minutes break. So let's go for 30 minutes and come back to finish the rest of the class for today so that we can take some rest as well. So 30 minutes and we'll be back. So that means we'll be back at 6:30. Okay. Is it fine?
Yes.
Yeah. See you then.